Welcome to my FIFA 22 Chelsea ratings prediction video. I'm going to be looking at the whole Chelsea squad, looking at what I think their ratings will be for FIFA 22. Now, personally, I didn't really watch much of Chelsea last season. I did watch them in the Champions League and I did watch a few of their games against the bigger sides. So to kind of get my idea for these ratings, I went to a lot of Chelsea kind of fan pages or, journalists about the seasons just to kind of look at what their ratings for the season were and how they kind of performed. So I feel like these predictions will be kind of educated, but obviously people won't always agree with them. And like I said, they're not going to be 100% accurate for what they might, the ratings end up might being, just because I didn't watch them for every game. But I feel like I have a fairly good idea. And if you disagree with them, drop what you think the ratings would be in the comments. So the first player I'm going to be looking at is Mason Mount. Now, Mason Mount, for me, had a really, really good season. Definitely was, for me, Chelsea's standout player, potentially, I think. It's like I say, started off a bit slow, like everyone else, but came into it. As you can see on the screen, his Prem stats, 36 games, 6 goals, 5 assists. And then Champions League stats, 11 games, 2 goals, 2 assists. Now, these stats aren't particularly crazy, but when you watch Mount this season, you could just see the way he controlled games, the way he was moving the ball, creating chances. He had a really good season. And for me, he deserves a +3. Now, I was thinking +3 maybe a bit too much, but I feel like he deserves it. I feel like he did have a very, very good season. In the Euros, I didn't think he was as good, which was the main thing that held me back from, kind of made me question why I gave him an 83. But I think for me, he does deserve it. Gave him a nice boost in pace, couple shooting, 4 passing, no physical defending, and I gave him 4 more dribbling because his just on the ball, he is absolutely insane. And I also gave him a 1+ in skill moves from 3-star to 4-star skill moves, just because, he has got some good skills on the ball. And I think he definitely deserves that +3 rating. Okay, we've got Romelu Lukaku now. Now, as I was making this video, these rumours really started. And honestly, there's a big chance that Lukaku could end up at Chelsea. Obviously, he was at Chelsea beforehand, or previously in his career. And linked back then out for like 120 million euro move, I think. And Lukaku had a great season. I think he, as you can see on the side there, he had 24 goals and 10 assists in 36 games in Serie A and 4 goals in 5 games in the Champions League. He had a great season, and the season before he had a very good season as well. I think he deserves to go up to an 88. Honestly, he's a very good player. Now, I have juiced his stats quite a lot. I've given him a big pace boost up to 86, 88 shooting, 80 passing because of the 10 assists. He definitely deserves a boost there. 86 physical and a boost in dribbling. I've also dropped his defending down a little bit. But for me, he deserves this card all day long. Top player. And he'll probably get this one to watch card as well if he does go there. So for me, an 88 rated card with those upgraded stats is 100% deserved for Lukaku if he does end up at Chelsea. Okay, so now we've got Kai Havertz. I wasn't sure what to do with him because obviously didn't really have a particularly great season. Obviously he scored the winner in the Champions League, which is great, but I mean you can't really say the whole season was great because of that. I don't think he had the worst season, and I think with a new player coming into the Premier League for such a high price tag, it's always going to be difficult. I wouldn't be surprised if EA gave him an 84, but I just think it's a bit harsh to give him an 84. And I definitely couldn't justify upgrading him, so I kept him more or less the same. Gave him an extra passing and a couple of extra physical, but I just don't think it's fair to downgrade him, but I don't think you could ever justify upgrading him. So I've just kept Havertz the same as an 85 rated card. And it is the same with Teemo Werner. Look, Teemo Werner had a bad season. He should have scored way more. He had so many good chances, but couldn't quite do it. I mean, he had 38 games, 6 goals, 8 assists. Could have been 20 goals and 10 assists easily. And then in the Champions League, he got 12 games, 4 goals, 2 assists, which I actually don't think is that bad. But Look, I think a lot of people have him downgraded to an 84. I think he might get downgraded to an 84. But, Champions League, he didn't actually have that bad of a time in terms of stats. And obviously, in the Premier League, it wasn't great. Like I said, I think it would be a bit harsh to downgrade him. But I could definitely see why he would get downgraded. Like, he did have a poor season. But yeah, again with Havertz, coming in for the first time. I think he had a good Champions League campaign, really. But, I did downgrade his shooting by 2 because, he did miss a lot of good chances. I gave him an extra dribbling and I gave him extra passing. I think the shooting downgrade is definitely justified. But whether I downgrade him to an 84, I wouldn't personally, but I think EA potentially could do that. Okay, now I've thrown in a potential transfer that does look quite likely to happen. Jules Koundé from Sevilla. I think he is going to probably join Chelsea. So I have done a card for him. In La Liga, he had 34 games, 2 goals, 1 assist. Obviously, for a defender, that's actually okay. And you don't really look at those kind of stats for a defender. And then in the Champions League, he had 7 games and a goal, which is also quite good. For me, I was debating giving him an 81. I think maybe I should have done now looking at it. And because he did have a good season, I was reading up about him and he was an important part of Sevilla's squad. So maybe an 81 would have been a bit fairer, but I did give him a nice upgrade. I gave him 2 pace, I gave him 3 passing, 2 physical, 1 defending, and 1 dribbling. And maybe, like I said, I should have given him an 81, but I think EA are sometimes a bit, reluctant to give huge upgrades. So I've just gone for the +1 on Koundé if he does transfer to Chelsea. The next player is Angolo Kante. And, Kante's in the shortlist for the Ballon d'Or, which says enough about his season. I know a lot of people say, he's just popular because he's so nice. He does not actually had as good of a season as people think, but I honestly think he did. I think he got man of the match in the Champions League final and semi-final. So, that says enough. And I think he definitely deserves a +1. 30 games, 2 assists, 13 games, 1 assist in the Champions League. Like I say, with the Kante, you're not really looking at the goals and assists. You're more looking at just his impact on a game, his interceptions. He's everywhere. So I gave him a +1. I gave him 2 pace, 1 defending, 1 physical, and a extra dribbling and a couple passing. I dropped his shooting a little bit just because he didn't score. But like I say, I think he definitely deserves a +1 rating. Okay, now we've got Georginio. Now he's also in the shortlist for the Ballon d'Or, I believe. And he didn't really get spoken about throughout the season, really until the season ended and Italy won the Euros, as he was considered like a key part in that, as well as Chelsea winning the Champions League. And obviously, if you win the Champions League and the Euros, you probably had a quite decent season. So, I did give him a +2 boost. I think an 85 rated card would be fair for that. In terms of numbers, you wouldn't expect too many numbers from Georginio as kind of a holding midfielder, but I gave him 5 pace, I gave him 5 shooting, I gave him 2 passing, 2 physical, 4 defending, and 4 dribbling. I think this is definitely a justified upgrade. I think he is one of those players that always flies under the radar a bit because he doesn't necessarily score loads of goals or get loads of assists, but definitely deserves the upgrade for me, and I gave him a +2. So now we've got Rhys James, who I thought, I don't think he had a completely insane season. I thought he had a very good season though, and I thought, 77 rated card for Rhys James, he definitely deserves to be higher. So I gave him a 79. If he was already an 80 rated, I probably wouldn't have upgraded him that much, but I just think 77 for Rhys James is way too low. I gave him 5 pace because I think he's actually quite rapid. Kept his shooting the same, gave him a passing, gave him a couple of defending, kept his physical the same, and I gave him 3 dribbling as well. I just think Rhys James deserves a 79 or an 80 rated card. I think he's a really solid player, definitely going to keep improving as well. And like I say, I just think he's way quicker than 80 pace, so I gave him a +5 on pace. Okay, now we've got Thiago Silva. Now, Thiago Silva has had a howler against West Brom, but ever since that, I think he's actually been quite solid. I was reading a few articles and a few people giving their ratings of Chelsea this season, and it's generally considered that Thiago Silva was quite an important part of their squad, defensively for the experience. Now, I don't think he had a season worthy of getting an upgrade from what I read. I think, he was good, but I don't think he was like completely outstanding. But I definitely don't think he deserves a downgrade either. I think an 85 is a fair rating. I've dropped his pace a couple because EA will, because he's quite old. I've given him a physical, kept defending the same, dropped dribbling by 2, given him 2 passing, and I think I've kept everything else the same. Like I say, I couldn't justify upgrading him, but definitely just can't justify downgrading him either, so I've just kept him at an 85. Okay, so now we've got Mateo Kovacich. Now, I didn't really watch Chelsea this season, but I was like reading a lot of people who do watch Chelsea every game, and the consistent theme was Kovacic. Can't even say his name. Kovacic had a good season last season, but failed to live up to the expectations this season. And I don't know. I just dropped him by 1. I was tempted to keep him the same, but they did say he had a fairly average season. Had a few good performances here or there, but generally just wasn't as good. So I've dropped him by 1 rating, dropped his shooting by a couple. I've kept his passing the same. I've dropped his dribbling by 2, and I think I've dropped his defending by 1. So, like I say, I mean, people might not agree with me on this one, but I just think, don't really think he had a particularly great season. I think for Croatia in the Euros, he was okay. But for me, I think from what I read and what I watched of him, I think giving him a 1 downgrade is probably fair. Moving on to Hakim Ziyech. I mean, this might be a bit hypocritical when I was talking about Havertz and Werner, how it's a bit unfair on their first season to downgrade them. But I did drop Ziyech by 1, just because for me, Werner actually played a lot and was actually a bit better than people thought. I think Havertz with the Champions League winning goal, and I think he did kind of play fairly well. And also in the Euros, Havertz played quite well, which I'm considering in this. And obviously Ziyech couldn't play in the Euros, so maybe again, this is a bit unfair. But I did give him a -1 or a -1 downgrade. 23 games, 2 goals, 3 assists in the Prem, and then 10 games, 2 goals, no assists in the Champions League. Like I say, this might be a bit hypocritical, but I just thought he just didn't really live up to the hype that was around him. I think he definitely can do still, but I was quite disappointed in Ziyech. I thought he was going to be the best out of all of those signings for the first season. So I dropped his shooting by 1, his passing by 1, kept his dribbling the same. I think I kept everything else the same. Like I say, that might be a bit harsh, but I think, just overall fairly disappointing for me. Okay, now we've got Ben Chilwell. Now, the consensus around Chilwell was that he was good, but maybe didn't quite live up to his price tag this season. So I've just gone for a +1 on Chilwell. 27 games, 3 goals, 5 assists in the Prem, which I actually think is quite good. And then in the Champions League, he only got a goal, so maybe not quite as good. But I thought he had a decent season overall. I gave him 2 pace, 4 passing, 2 dribbling, 1 defending, and 2 physical. Maybe that's quite a lot for a +1, but I think he definitely deserves the 82 rated card for a decent season. He's quite a well-rounded player, so I think a +1 for Chilwell is fair. Cesar Asplaquetta, captain of Chelsea. I mean, I think he'll stick around for a season or 2 more. Getting on a bit though, but I thought he had a decent season. I think to start off with, he was not really used too much or wasn't particularly great. I think Rhys James was starting over him. Definitely grew into the season as it came along and captained Chelsea to a Champions League final. I wasn't sure whether to downgrade him, but I think EA will downgrade him, which is kind of what I have. I'm pretty sure he'll be an 83 rated card next year. I dropped his pace a couple because he's obviously getting a bit older, and that's what EA like to do. Gave him a dribbling, gave him a physical and a passing. So I'll probably upgrade him more stats, but downgrade him his overall. But I think we're looking at his card that is probably around an 83 rated card, maybe even an 82. I think 83 is what it will be next year, just because of the slow start to the season he had. But he definitely did improve as the season went on. Edouard Mendy. Now, obviously, Kepa was signed a couple of seasons ago for 80 million. Didn't work out. So they brought in Mendy to replace him. And I think he's had an insane start. 31 games, 16 clean sheets in the Prem. And then Champions League, 12 games, 9 clean sheets. Now that's crazy. So for me, he deserves this +4 upgrade that I've given him. I've given him an 83 rated card. I boosted his diving by 5. I boosted his handling by 2. Kicking by 5. Positioning by 3. 5 speed. And is that 8 reflexes there? I think he definitely deserves this upgrade. He's really, really good. Like I say, 9 clean sheets in 12 games in the Champions League is crazy. So for me, the +4 rating is 100% justified. Christian Pulisic, for me, had a bit of an underwhelming season, and especially what I read, he struggled with injuries, I think, quite a bit. Played 27 games, 4 goals, 2 assists in the Prem. Champions League, he got 10 games, 2 goals, 2 assists, which actually is all right. So I gave him a -1 on his card, just down to an 80. I think he did have generally a fairly poor season. I think injuries kind of played a big part in that. So, like I say, I gave him a -1, gave him 1 less pace, 1 less shooting, kept the passing and dribbling the same, and dropped his physical by 2. Like I say, I think maybe because of the injuries you could keep him at an 81, but I think when he did play he wasn't particularly amazing, so I think a -1 on his card is justified. Antonio Rudiger definitely grew into the season from what I read. I don't think he really featured too much at the start of the season. But in the Champions League final and all like the games leading up to that, he started towards the end of the season. Tuchel used him a fair bit. So I think for me, the +1 upgrade is definitely fair. You can maybe argue a +2, but I think if he would have played the whole season, I would have done that. But I think just because playing towards the end of the season, I think a +1 is fair. I gave him 4 pace, 1 defending, 2 physical, 3 passing, is that 2 dribbling, and kept just shooting the same. Like I say, for me, the +1 is 100% justified on Rudiger because he did have a very, very strong second half of the season. Okay, so for the last few cards, I've not gone and got their individual stats because these are kind of players that maybe didn't feature too much. Obviously, we can see Kepa in the top left. Gave him a -3. I think, when he played, he was all right, but, he wasn't particularly great. I think there's still a future for Kepa. I think he still can be a good goalkeeper. I just think the 80 million price tag definitely hindered him. And I think in his first season at Chelsea, he was all right. But obviously, Mendy's coming to replace him. I think 82 is a bit too high for Kepa, so I've dropped him down to a 79. Then underneath him, we've got Kurt Zuma. Now, Zuma had a strong start to the season. I believe he scored like 5 goals or something crazy like that. But I think he didn't really feature towards the end of the season. I don't think he played in the Champions League final or anything leading up to that, or really many games at the end of the season. So I couldn't justify giving him a +1 because he lost his place. But I think with the start to the season he definitely justifies keeping his 80 rated card. I think you could definitely lean towards more upgrading him than you could downgrading him. But it does look like he's going to go to Sevilla. I gave him 2 pace. I gave him 5 shooting because he scored 5 goals. 1 dribbling, kept his defending the same, and I dropped his physical by 1 and his passing by 1. Like I say, I think he's going to go to Sevilla in a swap for Koundé, but I have kept him in there because he is currently a Chelsea player. Then we've got Christensen, and I don't know if he was injured, but I think he had a fairly hit and miss season. I think he played a little bit, but when he did play, he was all right. So I have kept him at a 79 rated card. And then bottom right, we've got Marcos Alonso, who I think had a fairly poor season. I don't think he featured too much. So I've dropped him by, what was that, 2? Yep. And then I've dropped his pace a bit, his physical, his dribbling, his passing. Like I said, I think he might move on this season, but I definitely don't think he can justify keeping an 81 rated card. And then finally, we've got the last set of players. So we've got Emerson. I've dropped him by 1. I don't know if it's that fair because he didn't really get the opportunity to play. I think he scored against Real Madrid when he came on once. So I dropped him by 1. I think it would be fair to keep him at 79, but I mean, he didn't really feature. He didn't really force his way into the team. So I think dropping him by 1 is fair. Tammy Abraham, I didn't change at all. I think he didn't get any opportunity to play. I hope he moves on because he is a good player and I think he could definitely be a great Prem striker, but he didn't get the opportunity to play this season, so I've just kept him the same. Hudson-Odoi, I gave him a +1. Now I wasn't too sure whether to do this or keep him the same. I thought he did have a few good bits, but overall, I don't know. I feel like you could have kept him at 74. I wouldn't have downgraded him because I don't think he featured too much, but I think there's definitely potential in there, and I gave him a 75 rated card. And then Billy Gilmore, I know he's at Norwich on loan, but he is technically still a Chelsea player, so I have given him a card upgrade here. I've given him a +2 to a 73. I think you could even maybe give him a 74. He definitely did play all right this season. I don't think he had much of a chance to feature just because of that inexperience. And for Scotland, I think he was actually all right as well. So I gave him a +2. I think that's fair. I gave him a couple pace, defending, physical, passing. I upgraded him everywhere, I think, except for shooting. So, like I said, I think he definitely deserves that. Okay, that's going to be it for my Chelsea ratings predictions. Now, obviously, some Chelsea fans might disagree with me here, or just fans in general. But, like I say, these are just my opinions and from what I read. I think EA are very unpredictable with their ratings. But I'm going to do some other clubs as well. I'm going to do probably like Liverpool, Man United, Bayern Munich, Dortmund, Real Madrid, Barcelona. So if you want to see that, please subscribe. And any other team suggestions, drop in the comments. And thank you for watching.